I am Elizabeth Weinstock, or Betsy Weinstock, and as a writer, I am also Elizabeth Hawes. And the last book I wrote was a biography memoir about Albert Camus a couple of years ago. And until recently, all I really knew about Patricia Marx, who is also Patty Marx, is that I loved her witty and edgy pieces in Shouts and Murmurs, and on the Avenue and other places in the New Yorker. And her piece about service animals made me laugh out loud. And just thinking of it now makes me begin to laugh out loud, particularly when I think about the pig. Having worked at the New Yorker for a long time, I've always put her, since I first read her, put her in the tradition, in the continuum of so many of the other great humorists and satirists, like Dorothy Parker and Andy Borowitz, even a prosy version of Roz Chast. But now that I've learned a little bit more about Patty, I see that she is very much herself, and she reflects exactly who she is and where she has been, at least to the extent of the highly intelligent Harvard graduate who was one of the first females to be elected to the Lampoon, the writer for Saturday Night Live and Rugrats, the Princeton professor, the author of a variety of books that reflect her great take on contemporary culture. She's deep, and she's dazzling and provocative, and she's delightfully tuned into contemporary culture. Her new book on so-called cognitive decline, which seems like a very unlikely state for her, which is about our brain and her brain, is an adventure as well as a very knowledgeable and original read. What a pleasure it is to introduce Patty Marx, and Let's Be Less Stupid. I'm not known as a particularly funny person, but in my appreciation of her and in my very brief association with her today, I feel positively hilarious. My pleasure to introduce Patricia Marx.
Thank you. I would so much rather interview you about what it was like to be at the New Yorker when Sean was there. So many people to disappoint. I really should have prepared something. But to prove that I really should have written this book or that it doesn't work, while you were introducing me, I lost my glasses twice. And I panicked, even the second time that I had lost them somewhere else. So I'm really going to kind of wing it here. No, these are my sunglasses, but I have so many glasses here that I'm bound to lose them. I have, where are they? I have these glasses in case there's a movie in case Barney Frank is really interesting and I need to say it, and then I have my reading glasses. But speaking of Barney Frank, let me tell you about my day. First I heard the delightful Mary Norris over there or somewhere, who's the New Yorker comic queen. And I thought, thank God, right here. And I thought, thank God I don't have to follow her. She's too delightful. I don't want to do that. And then I went and heard Susan Minot, who might have been here herself or over there or somewhere. And she had just a heart-wrenching reading of her novel based on a real story about children being kidnapped in Uganda. And I thought, nobody should have to follow that. And then I went to hear Eric Larson. And, really, you should all just go buy their books. I went to hear Eric Larson, whose books I've really liked. And he's a historian, so I thought, well, he'll be dry, and that'll be good for me. And he was really funny. And I hate it when people leave their genre that's not comedy and are funny, because come on, I'm not a historian, so I can't do that. I'm not even a scientist, and yet I wrote this book about neuroscience, sort of. My next piece, by the way, is about sleep for the New Yorker. I haven't started it, and I was telling my mother about it. She goes, that's perfect for you because you're a scientist. I thought, I'm not a scientist. Where was I going with this? Oh, so then after Eric Larson, I turned to the person next to me, Ellen Orfer, my wonderful friend and host, with Kay and Leslie, and said, this is depressing me. Let's leave. I don't want to hear any more. So we went over there and got lunch, and I went and I looked at my Kindle and tried to like read the most boring thing. I looked for the phone book or a manual to my, blender to read, thinking maybe that'll make me seem a little better. And so then I went over, I was reading Under the Shade, I was reading the most boring book I could see. And then, Barney Frank is booming. Like, I can't escape it. Anyway, I'm trying to lower your expectations, is what I'm trying to do. So, I come from comedy. I wrote for Saturday Night Live, a job I don't know even how I got it. I had been in graduate school because I didn't want to do anything else. And there was graduate school. And I came back one summer and they were taking applicants for Saturday Night Live. So I thought, well, I'll apply to this. And the producer said, could you write 3 sketches by Monday? It was Friday. I thought, I can't write 3 sketches in a year. So I said, okay. And I went home and I wrote these things. And I hear my parents in the other room say, did you read those sketches? They were terrible. They were so terrible. What's she going to do? She doesn't have a graduate degree. She doesn't have any skills. So I got the job, and I really only got the job, I later learned, is not because the sketches didn't give me the job. They were really terrible. But I had additionally sent these doodles and funny drawings and funny little bits that intrigued the producer. So I got that job. I don't know where I'm going with this. Then things happened. I didn't get the job. But working for Saturday Night Live is your first job, by the way, means that you view everything as, this is going to be comedy material, this isn't going to be comedy material. So you read the newspaper, not going to read that, not really going to be funny. No, Andy Borowitz already wrote that piece, so I'm not going to do that. I mean, really, Andy Borowitz wrote everything, so you can't really use that as a criterion. Anyway, I wrote a lot of pieces. I wrote some books. I wrote with Roz Chast. Eric Larson told about the worst signing he ever had, which was pretty bad, and I can't beat it, but probably a lot of you weren't there, so I can give mine, which was Roz and I publish children's books sometimes. And it was August like this, and somebody in a parka sits in the front row, and that's probably going to be bad. And she raises her hand, and she says, I just want to say that you two are both very ugly, and that you clearly don't like children, and you probably don't believe in God. And Roz is saying, I gotta get out of here. And I'm just thinking, I better remember this so I can write about it later. And anyway, so I guess I'm gonna have to get to this book. This book, How to Be Less Stupid, came out of terror, really. Really, I like to think like everybody my age, which is an age I can't believe I'm turning. I keep thinking, what did I do wrong? Did I get a form in the mail that said, I would like to stay 30, please, for the rest of my life? So you get to this age, and everybody sentences begin with, where did I put my, or did you see this, or what's the word for that thing that's a thing that you put in the thing? And then you have conversations with people like, no, my brain is really going. No, your brain is not going. My brain really is going. I know, you have nothing to worry about. No, did you put toothpaste on your contact lenses ever? And you think, I don't have contact lenses, but I would have. And you're trying to win this contest where the winner is proving how bad off she is. But yet you're competitive enough. So then I went to LA to do a TV thing. And I went through this phase where I was losing my wallet so many times that I thought, if I had $1 for every time I lost my wallet, I wouldn't need a wallet. And I was getting kind of worried. So I thought, I better find out if there's anything wrong with my brain. And if there's anything I can do about it. and I better do it fast. Because one of my fears is that, like, the day after I die, they're going to solve mortality. And when I tell people this, they go, but you don't really want to live forever. That really, you wouldn't be, then your life wouldn't be precious. And I go, I do. I really do. Because I think I could have a lot more fun later in my 300s. So where was I going with this? So I decided I'm going to find out if there's anything wrong with my brain. I did a New Yorker piece about it, but it wasn't enough about me, because I was on a memoir panel. I don't really write memoirs, but I do write a lot about me, and I put myself in situations usually that nobody else will be in. I mean, I'm like the New Yorker. My beat is anything that nobody else will do, I will do. Elizabeth said that I took like a pig on a plane. I took an alpaca to a museum. So I went about, I read a lot of neuroscience books and talked to a lot of people and made a list of everything that they tell you to do. And I thought, I will try to do that for 4 months, and I will have everything I can stand to do, and I will have my brain imaged before and after, and I will take an IQ test before and after and see what happens. First, I took an IQ test online. There are a lot of free IQ tests online. They're not really free because in order to get the results, you have to pay money. And I shouldn't have paid the money, as it turned out, because... And IQ tests online are... It said that your IQ is probably 28 points higher than it is even in real life. So I've taken this test and I think, wow, this is easy. I am acing this. This is so, so easy. My mother is right. I am a genius. And then I press the button to get the results, and it's 74, which means it's a miracle I can tie my shoes. And it turns out that the directions said that you had 20 minutes. I took all day. I did a little, I voted for mayor. I did a little, I called some people. I did a little, I had lunch. So you could say that I deserved to get that. Then I went and got my IQ really taken, and I went for MRIs. I had never done that. It turned out, and everybody said MRIs are horrible. It's really claustrophobic. It's loud. First of all, it turns out I love claustrophobia. I thought it was really great. And I'm a New Yorker, so it was like, you call this noisy? This is not noisy. And here's what I found out about the brain. Just a little bit of science, because I don't really know very much. Decades ago, they believed, and I thought, that you were born with a certain number of neurons, and that days go by and they kind of fade like pixels on a paper. It turns out that that's not true, that we can grow a lot of neurons, and more important, and you have so many neurons. You have 100 billion neurons, which is one neuron for every human being that ever beed since history. And each of those neurons can make connections with other neurons, like road work, 10,000 other neurons. So you have 100 trillion connections. It's a lot that's like more stars than their Milky Way. By the way, one thing about this book is I have a lot of cocktail party trivia. Some that I couldn't even use, like ears emit noise. Who knew? So the brain is very plastic. We didn't think it was plastic, but everything you do, all learning, either creates or alters or strengthens your connection, and that's very promising. Even doing that, I get another connection. And there's a theory called cognitive reserve that means that, like a bank account, if you mentally challenge yourself or learn a lot of things, that you will have a much more robust highway system, basically, so that if you get Alzheimer's, and Alzheimer's is a disease they don't really know that much about, that you will be able to like detour around it. This is already getting to be too much science for me, but so that people who are more educated, for instance, for every, I think, year of education, their symptoms of Alzheimer's are delayed 2 months because they can compensate by going around. And then at the critical point where there's just no way, like there are too many tractor-trailer accidents on the highway, then smarter people deteriorate faster. But anyway, I did a lot of things. I learned Cherokee. I really hope there's nobody who knows Cherokee because I don't want to be tested. The reason I learned Cherokee, by the way, is because I got it confused with Navajo. And Navajo was the language that code breakers used in World War II. The cryptographers helped to break codes, and I thought, well, when World War III comes, I'll be sitting pretty if I know Cherokee. It turns out it's Navajo. So that was shot. But I can say Shiu, that means hello, and I can say Gagayu, that means, well, it sort of means I love you, but it means more than that. It means I will give you my food, I will give you my last breath, but I will not, give you my seat on the bus or something. did Lumosity Exercises, which probably a lot of you do or know about, and I did those all day long. You're supposed to do it 20 minutes a day. I did them all day long because I knew I was going to write about it, and I wanted a really high score, so I would cheat. And I got a really high score. In case anybody wants to know my score, it's like 99th percentile or something, which is what happens when you cheat. And I had electricity zapped into my brain with this little device, crano-electrostimulator, which looks like a garage door with 2 wire tails that are connected to sponges the size of an Oreo that you wet. And I was thinking, if worse comes to worse, maybe I can telepathically open the garage door. And it zaps this electricity into your brain. Under the reverse women and children principle, I made, 15 minutes left. I'm going to give you some quizzes. Unless you, how did 15 minutes go? You want quizzes or questions? Quizzes. Let's do quizzes. I'm going to give you, I have tons and tons, I don't want those. I have so many quizzes in my book, and I'm going to give you one. For instance, these are some of the things that they recommend that you do, and some of them are true, and some of them I made up, and some of them just, well, the ones I made up, they might be true, but they just haven't been funded yet. So you just shout out true or bullshit. Write backward with your weaker hand. True. Rearrange your furniture. True. Make your bed using the flat sheet for the fitted sheet and vice versa. God, you all are good. Don't step on the sidewalk cracks for an entire day. Bullshit. Create top 100 lists. True. Join a cult and then give the leader 13 reasons why you're quitting. True. No, bullshit. Take a slow day in which you do everything at half speed. True. That's really good news because I do that every day. Eat dinner under the table. Bullshit. Parallel park while blindfolded. Don't you wish that were true? Take a baked potato out of the oven with your bare hand. Bullshit, but I can do that. Make a pineapple upside down cake right side up. Bullshit, but you have to admit, some graduate students should do a thesis on that. Keep a journal. True, so boring. It would be true, right? Avoid reading the newspaper or news websites for a week. Bullshit. Donate 1/3 of your clothes to charity. Bullshit. So these are true. Eat less, drink water. Every time I get to this, I think, why didn't I learn how to pronounce it? Take ginkgo biloba. Don't take ginkgo biloba. That's the thing that's really kind of great and not great about neuroscience. It's for every study that says do this, another study says doesn't work. B is true. Sit up straight. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going to do one more quiz. Okay, this is kind of a good quiz. This is the state of my brain. Blah. Okay, this is called, what is your mental age? And the directions are, you have 2 minutes to answer these questions. If you do not have a timer, start counting. What's the word for the stuff you sprinkle on your food, but it's not pepper? No, well, I'm not finished. No, not salt, but like salt, but supposedly better for you because it doesn't have salt in it. No salt substitute. What's that thing you put in the thing you take pictures with, that thing? What's the thing you put inside that? Memory card. Film is not accepted. Get with it. By the way, I can't do any of the quizzes. I can do this one. What's the car that's not Toyota Camry? Honda Accord. Okay, this is the easiest one. Who's the guy who isn't Robert De Niro? Right. Easy. Okay, this is a hard one. What is the little plastic person you play with called? Barbie. Okay. How do you spell the drink that's made with rum, lime juice, and sugar and comes with a tiny umbrella, and don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about? No? Well, I'm sure someone got it right. Daiquiri. All right. Do you need tomato paste or do you have some in the cabinet? And I never use tomato paste is not an acceptable answer. Okay, right. Off the wagon, on the wagon. Which is the good one? And by good one, I mean the bad one that's not fun. I don't remember. I never can remember that. Remind me which is better, Baptist or Methodist? That's a trick question. Quaker. Half credit for Unitarian. 10. What number is next? And the answer is depends on how you define next. 11. Why is there a post-it on the cutting board? There are a lot more quizzes, and they're very, very serious, like this one, and pictures and diagrams, and there's a diagram even. I just want to tell you, there's a theory that the reason we're getting so stupid, is that we're actually getting smarter, and that our brains are just so crammed. I mean, we absorb the equivalent of 174 newspapers a day, and by we, not me. I don't. Anyway, so I have this whole chapter on the things that you're allowed to forget. And if I could find it, I would tell you where it was. But basically, it's everything you learned in school, and phone numbers and things like that. 5 minutes. Any questions? Yeah.
What were your results after the period of time, your test? How did you do before and after?
Well, I can't tell you, but I'll tell you one thing. When I had my brain imaged, so the technician called me up. She said, "Really great news. Look, all these areas are lighting up, and your brain got 33% bigger." So I tell my boyfriend, who's a scientist, 33% bigger. My brain's 33% bigger. He laughs and laughs and laughs. He goes, "That would mean that it is oozing out of your nose, ears, and mouth." And he also told me about the MRI machine reliability. He said, well, I actually read this, but it's true. They put a dead salmon in an MRI machine and showed it pictures of human faces and asked the salmon, what emotions did these faces convey? And wouldn't you know, there was some activity. So, I mean, the lesson is ask a salmon. Any other questions? No questions? Yeah. Okay, I can't deal with that. I'll deal with the funny part. I have an answer. Okay. I have a lot of things to say. One of them is irrelevant. No. I didn't know. Right, you know, here's the thing is, and this is serious about memory, is like, most of what we don't remember, it's because we weren't, for me, weren't listening. There are 3 stages. There's attention, which kind of goes, I mean, I have a lot of things to say, but we don't have all day. And then there's storage, and then there's retrieval. And really, a lot of it is, in my case, I'm never listening. I'm just thinking, when is there going to be a pause in this person's, what she's saying, so I can insert my bon mot? She said something... She said something about writing a joke, right? Is that what it was? You better say it again, and loud, because clearly I'm not. Yeah. Okay. All right. Writing a joke is completely different than performing, because there's a lot of things you can do, and but both rely on some of the same things. They rely on surprise, which is they rely on timing, even in writing, and they rely on brevity. They rely, I mean, but related to my book, it occurred to me that. One of the things that there are some things that improve as you get older. Your vocabulary does, big picture thinking does, and I'm thinking, I think people get funnier because as your attention diminishes, you are forced to put 2 things together that don't belong, and that's really funny. And that's why I hate to say it, but sometimes Alzheimer's people say really funny things because it's just so surprising, and it doesn't belong, and it is about incongruity, crafting a joke. But when you craft the joke on paper, you wait till the end to put the punchline. Yeah. I teach comedy, so come to my class. I bore you for 8 weeks on that one.
When you wrote for Saturday Night Live, did you have a particular character you wrote for, or were you just general?
Are you kidding? I was my first job ever. My mother said, "How come your sketches are never on?" I said, "Well, the producers just pick smut." And my mother said, "Maybe a little smut wouldn't hurt you." No, there are no characters. Whatever I could get on, and that really wasn't much. Anybody else? No? Yes. No, truly, I am really afraid of speaking in crowds. No, I'm not anymore. I'm a big ham. But I had utter stage fright. I never said anything. I was the person always who sat in the back of the class making fun of the teacher and then doing extra credit. And I never, ever raised my hand or anything. And then years and years of teaching made me think I would much rather talk than listen. So I don't really mind it. And I will say, I think writing is great because it's like uninterrupted talk about yourself. Yeah.
So where are you teaching now? I can't tell from the write-up.
I'm teaching at Columbia and 92nd Street Y in the fall, and I'm teaching at Stony Brook in the spring. This next year, I teach all over the place.
Did you want to be when you grew up?
I never wanted to grow up. I mean, I had no idea. I thought maybe one day I wake up, I have a mother hairdo, a station wagon, and 3 children, but there's nothing. And I went to college, and then I majored in every single thing you could probably. I mean, I was pre-law, pre-business, pre-med, pre-everything. 4 years, eliminate everything. So then I go to graduate school because I know I don't want to get a job. So basically, I've managed not to get a job by writing. I never wanted to be anything. Who would? Anybody else? No? Yeah.
It seems like there's more women in comedy and writing in comedy. Do you think that is a trend, or are we still very...
Well, it has to be a trend because there were hardly any before, right? I think there are, yeah. I mean, Amy Schumer's really, there's a lot of comedians, yeah, I think. Me, probably, me. Yeah. Anybody else? Thank you.